away from others, you're pulling closer to Him. His will becomes clearer when you stop seeking validation from people and start seeking confirmation from His Spirit. There is a deeper level of peace that comes when you align with God's plan through self-focus. The chaos of comparison fades. The need to explain yourself disappears. You rest in the truth that you don't have to force what God has already ordained for you. Your focus becomes sharper, your faith becomes stronger, and your heart becomes calmer because you know that what is meant for you will not pass you by. This peace is not rooted in your control over the situation, but in your surrender to His plan. Focusing on yourself also keeps you rooted in God's timing. When you're aligned with Him, you stop rushing the process or resenting the waiting season. You trust that every step is intentional, every delay has a purpose, and every breakthrough will happen exactly when He has planned it. Your focus becomes a way to honor His sovereignty, a quiet confidence that His plan is better than anything you could design for yourself. Each day of self-discipline and spiritual reflection brings you closer to the life He has prepared for you, not by force, but by faith. Not every battle requires a response, because some conflicts are merely distractions meant to pull you away from your purpose. When you understand this, you realize that silence can be a weapon of wisdom. Not every comment needs an answer, not every insult needs a defense, and not every challenge deserves your energy. There's strength in restraint. True power comes when you choose your battles carefully, trusting that some struggles are beneath the calling God has placed on your life. When you respond to every battle, you dilute your focus and scatter your strength. God didn't create you to fight every fight. He created you to walk in discernment. Some battles are sent by the enemy to exhaust you emotionally and spiritually, keeping you too distracted to recognize God's direction. But when you stay silent, you're not being weak, you're being wise. You're choosing to protect your peace rather than waste it on battles that don't serve your purpose. Silence in the face of conflict is not about surrender, it's about strategy. Just like Jesus remained silent before His accusers, there's a time to speak and a time to hold your ground without a word. Responding to everything means giving others control over your emotions, but staying silent keeps you anchored in God's truth. When you refuse to engage in every fight, you declare that your faith is bigger than the opinions and actions of others. Some battles are better left to God. When you step back and resist the urge to respond, you give Him space to fight for you. Scripture reminds us that vengeance belongs to the Lord, not to us. By staying silent, you place the situation into His hands, trusting that He sees what you endure and will deal with it in His time. Your silence becomes a form of surrender, not to the situation, but to God's greater plan. There's a spiritual discipline in choosing silence over reaction. It forces you to rely on God's wisdom rather than your own impulses. It teaches you patience, self-control, and humility. Each time you resist the need to respond to something petty or provoking, you grow stronger in spirit. It's not about letting others win. It's about winning the war within yourself by refusing to let anger, pride, or fear drive your actions. Silence also allows you to maintain clarity. When you're constantly reacting to everything around you, it becomes hard to hear God's voice. But when you step back, breathe, and stay quiet, you create space for Him to speak into the situation. You start to see the battle from His perspective, not your emotions. His peace begins to guide you, helping you recognize what truly matters and what is simply a distraction dressed as a fight. Not every battle requires a response because some battles aren't meant for you to fight at all. They are there to test your faith, to teach you stillness, and to remind you that your strength lies in God, not in proving yourself to others. When you choose silence, you aren't giving up. You're standing firm. You're saying, I trust God more than I trust my need to be right. This is where true power lies, in knowing that not every storm needs your voice, because God's voice is the only one that commands the wind and the waves. Growth requires separation because not everything and everyone can come with you to the next level. There are seasons in life where God calls you to step away, not out of anger or pride, but out of purpose. Just like a seed must be buried alone in the dark before it can break open and grow, your spiritual and personal growth often begins when you separate from the familiar. It's in the quiet distance that God prepares you for what's next. Separation doesn't always mean cutting people off, but it does mean creating space to hear God's voice more clearly. When you're surrounded by noise, the opinions of others, the constant distractions of the world, it's hard to discern His plan. Growth requires you to pull back, to detach from anything that keeps you stuck in old habits or mindsets. Sometimes it's about stepping away from relationships, environments, or routines that no longer align with where God is leading you. When God is growing you, He often isolates you. Think of how He called Moses to the mountain, how He led Elijah to the wilderness, how even Jesus withdrew to lonely places to pray. Separation isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's a divine invitation to step out of the crowd and into communion with Him. In the stillness, your faith is stretched, your character is refined, and your vision becomes sharper. Growth requires separation from comfort. You can't step into something new while clinging to what's safe and familiar. The path to growth often feels lonely because it demands that you break free from the habits, mindsets, and even people who keep you anchored to your old self. It's not about abandoning others. It's about obeying God's call, even when it means walking a path that others don't understand. Separation reveals what truly sustains you. When you're no longer leaning on the validation or support of others, you start to realize where your strength comes from. It strips away the false security you once relied on and forces you to plant your roots deeper in God. Growth doesn't happen when you're surrounded by constant affirmation. It happens when you're alone with God, learning to depend on Him in the silence. Sometimes separation hurts because it feels like loss, but it's really a gain. When God pulls you away from something, it's because He's preparing to push you into something greater. The separation is a setup for elevation. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. The friendships that fade, the opportunities that close, the routines that suddenly feel empty, all of these shifts are part of God's process to clear space for new growth. True growth often means outgrowing certain spaces, conversations, and relationships. It's not about thinking you're better than others. It's about becoming better for what God has planned for you. Separation isn't a sign of disconnection. It's a sign of preparation. You're shedding old layers so you can step into a version of yourself that's aligned with God's purpose. What feels like isolation now is actually incubation for the person you're becoming. Let results speak for themselves, because words can be debated, but outcomes are undeniable. When you focus on growth, discipline, and purpose, you don't have to announce every move or explain every decision. The fruit of your work will eventually be seen without a single word. It's not about seeking validation from others. It's about allowing the quiet consistency of your efforts to build a testimony that speaks louder than any explanation ever could. In a world where people rush to broadcast every achievement, there is a quiet power in moving in silence. Not every victory needs a spotlight, and not every plan needs an audience. When you let results speak for themselves, you're showing their confidence doesn't come from approval. It comes from knowing you are walking in alignment with your purpose. The work you do behind closed doors, the sacrifices no one sees, and the prayers whispered in solitude all build a foundation that cannot be shaken. Results speak when words can't. People may doubt your dreams, question your decisions, and even misunderstand your silence, but when the results start to show, those same voices have no choice but to fall quiet. Growth is not a performance, it's a process. It's the hours spent working when no one is watching, the discipline you show when there's no applause, and the faith you cling to when the journey feels lonely. Let the outcome be your answer. Focusing on results means you're more invested in progress than perception. You're not trying to look successful, you're becoming successful. This kind of focus keeps you grounded because you're not chasing attention, you're chasing purpose. When you prioritize substance over show, you build something that lasts. The applause will fade, but the results of consistent effort and trust in God will keep speaking long after the noise has died down. When you let results speak, you move with a quiet confidence. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. Your work proves itself. It shifts your focus from explaining your goals to executing them. It turns your energy away from seeking approval and redirects it towards seeking growth. The world may not notice the small steps you take each day, but when the breakthrough comes, they will see what God was building in you all along. There's strength in letting results speak because it keeps your motives pure. You're not working hard so others will see. You're working hard because you are called to a purpose. When your effort comes from a place of faith and discipline, the results will be a natural reflection of God's hand on your life. You won't have to convince anyone of your growth. It will be visible in how you live, lead, and love. Letting results speak means trusting the process and God's timing. It's a quiet surrender to the fact that you don't need to broadcast every step or respond to every critic. The seeds you plant in faith, the habits you build in discipline, and the choices you make in silence will all produce a harvest in due season. The results will speak not because you shouted about your journey, but because you stayed focused, stayed faithful, and allowed the work to unfold naturally. Inner growth happens in silence because silence creates the space where self-reflection can truly take root. When the world quiets down, the noise of expectations, opinions, and comparisons fades away, allowing you to see yourself clearly. It is in these still moments that you confront your thoughts, your fears, and your hopes without interference. Silence doesn't rush you. It gives you the freedom to process what you're feeling, to sort through the clutter in your mind, and to face the areas in your life that need change. Growth cannot be forced, but in silence it is nurtured, slowly and steadily beneath the surface. Silence allows you to hear the gentle promptings of wisdom. When you remove the constant input from others, you begin to recognize the quiet voice inside, the one guiding you towards truth, the one reminding you of your purpose. In a world full of loud opinions and fleeting trends, silence becomes a sacred place where you reconnect with what truly matters. You realize that your value isn't tied to how loudly you announce your progress or how many people acknowledge your journey. It's rooted in something deeper, something unshakable. Growth in silence means trusting the process, even when no one sees the work you're putting in. It's in the quiet hours of discipline, waking up early, studying, praying, or building something meaningful that real transformation happens. These unseen moments test your character. Will you keep going even when there's no applause? Will you stay consistent when the results are slow? Silence strips away external motivation and forces you to rely on something stronger, a steady commitment to becoming who you were created to be. Silence also strengthens your emotional resilience. When you aren't constantly seeking validation or feedback from others, you learn to stand firm in your identity. You stop reacting to every comment or distraction and start responding with calm confidence. Silence teaches you that you don't have to defend yourself to everyone or explain every move you make. Your growth doesn't need a spotlight to be real. It happens quietly, like roots growing deeper into the soil, unseen yet essential. In silence, you discover the power of patience. Growth isn't always immediate, and silence teaches you to embrace the slow, steady pace of progress. It reminds you that just because you don't see visible changes right away doesn't mean growth isn't happening. Seeds take time to sprout, and the most lasting transformations often begin beneath the surface. Silence keeps you grounded, helping you resist the urge to rush or force results, trusting that what's growing within will emerge in its time. Silence also reveals your true intentions. When there's no audience watching, your motives become clear. Are you growing because you want approval or because you desire real change? Silence exposes whether you're pursuing growth for the right reasons. It pushes you to work with integrity, knowing that the reward isn't in recognition, but in the quiet confidence that you're becoming stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your purpose each day. Ultimately, inner growth in silence prepares you for the moments when you will have to stand firm in a noisy world. The strength you build in quiet places becomes the foundation for how you carry yourself when the volume turns up. Silence doesn't make you invisible, it makes you unshakable. It roots you so deeply in your purpose that when challenges arise, you don't crumble under pressure. Instead, you stand steady, grounded in the work you did when no one was looking. Silence keeps you anchored in purpose because it removes the distractions that pull you away from what truly matters. When the noise of the world is stripped away, you're left with the quiet reality of your own heart, your goals, your calling, and your values. It's in these moments of stillness that you reconnect with why you started, what you believe in, and the path you're meant to walk. Purpose isn't found in the constant chase for validation. It's discovered in the silent moments when you align your actions with what you know to be right. In silence, you gain clarity about the direction you're heading. The voices of others, their opinions, doubts, and expectations often cloud your vision. But when you step back into quietness, those external pressures fade and you can finally hear the steady voice of purpose within you. It reminds you of what you're working towards, not for applause or recognition, but because it's tied to something deeper, a sense of meaning that doesn't waver with people's approval. Silence strengthens your focus by pulling your attention back to what is essential. The world is filled with noise, trends shifting, people comparing, and the pressure to prove yourself. Yet when you embrace silence, you train your mind to tune out the unnecessary and lock in on your purpose. It allows you to pour your energy into what builds your future rather than scattering it across meaningless distractions. Focus sharpens in silence, and that focus fuels your progress. When you stay silent, you learn that not everything deserves your reaction. Silence becomes a shield, guarding your purpose from the negativity and doubts of others. It keeps you from wasting time on pointless arguments or defending your dreams to those who can't see your vision. Instead of explaining yourself, you use that energy to move forward, building quietly and consistently. Purpose isn't proven through words, it's revealed through steady action, and silence protects that. Silence also nurtures a deeper level of self-discipline. It teaches you to keep showing up even when no one notices. Without the need for external motivation, you become anchored in the daily unseen habits that push you closer to your purpose. You start to realize that success isn't about loud announcements or dramatic leaps. It's about silent, consistent steps. Each quiet, disciplined act builds a stronger foundation beneath you, rooting you in your purpose more firmly. In moments of silence, you develop patience with your process. Purpose is rarely fulfilled overnight. It unfolds slowly, often without immediate results. Silence keeps you steady when progress feels invisible, reminding you that just because growth isn't loud doesn't mean it's not happening. It strengthens your ability to trust the process, to keep building when the world isn't watching, and to hold on to the purpose that drives you even when the path feels long. Ultimately, silence connects you back to the source of your purpose. It strips away the distractions, the opinions, and the pressure to perform, leaving you with the quiet conviction of why you do what you do. In that stillness, you're reminded that your purpose isn't fragile. It doesn't need noise to validate it. It grows stronger in silence, rooting itself so deeply within you that no storm, no setback, and no outside voice can uproot it. Focusing on yourself aligns you with God's plan because it draws your attention away from the noise of the world and back to the quiet voice of His guidance. When you stop chasing the approval of others, you create space to hear what He is speaking into your life. His plan isn't found in the opinions of people or the pressure to perform. It's discovered in the stillness where you reflect, pray, and listen. The more you focus inward, the more you align with His purpose, allowing Him to shape your steps without the interference of worldly distractions. When you focus on yourself, you become more aware of the unique path God has laid out for you. It's easy to get lost when you're constantly comparing your journey to others. But His plan for you is personal and specific. By turning your gaze inward, you start to notice the talents He has given you, the lessons He is teaching you, and the areas He is calling you to grow. This alignment happens not by watching someone else's race, but by running your own with your eyes fixed on Him. Focusing on yourself strengthens your faith because it reminds you that your life is in His hands, not the hands of others. The world may offer opinions, but God offers direction. When you prioritize your spiritual growth, you build a deeper trust in His timing and His ways. You stop reacting to every outside influence and start responding to His Word, allowing His plan to unfold in your life, step by step. Faith grows in these quiet moments of alignment where you rely on His voice over the crowd's noise. God's plan often requires preparation, and focusing on yourself allows you to get ready for what He has in store. You can't step into the next season of your life if you're too busy watching someone else's. Self-focus doesn't mean selfishness. It means stewardship. It means tending to your heart, your mind, and your relationship with God so that when He calls you forward, you are strong enough to answer. Alignment with His plan happens when you use this time to build the character and discipline He desires for you. Silencing external distractions helps you stay obedient to God's purpose. The more you focus on what He's doing in your life, the less swayed you are by what others think you should be doing. God doesn't need a committee to approve His plan for you. He doesn't consult the world before giving you a purpose. So when you focus on yourself, you're not pulling